On behalf of Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom and Care, we would like to welcome you to today's web talk dedicated to Zimbabwe. Those of you who have been following us in the last weeks and months know that we are giving you a series here dedicated to the 10 most underreported humanitarian crises 2021, a list edited by CARE. And as I said, today we are totally focusing on Zimbabwe. Most of us know Zimbabwe as a country of rich wildlife, a destination for safari holidays, but obviously teaming up with CARE, we are not talking safari today. It is not about rhinos and elephants, but we would like to address and analyze the scope of the humanitarian crisis situation in Zimbabwe, and would like to check how extreme climate conditions affect severely Zimbabwean population in terms of droughts and floods, causing food insecurity and obviously exposing those most vulnerable to these challenges. And to get a bigger and better picture, CARE kindly prepared 2 slides for us, so to give us a bit key information on the country, because not all of us might have been able to travel to Zimbabwe. As you note, looking at, for example, the 2 indexes on human development and gender inequality, it is pretty low. Zimbabwe is ranking pretty low there, not at the bottom, obviously, but pretty low. So this is always an indication of the severity of the problems amounting in Zimbabwe. And just looking at the second slide, you see a number 6.8 million people in need of humanitarian assistance, 5.7 million people in lack of sufficient food. So this is severe. And the last number you see is related to COVID-19. COVID-19 hit Zimbabwe pretty hard, and as you can tell, there is a dramatic number of increase in gender-based violence, 200%, meaning that families affected by COVID-19 in a lockdown situation had to endure and are still enduring gender-based violence. So it will be, as you can tell, it's a cocktail of really dramatic, toxic problems we are going to address in our discussion, and we are very happy to have 2 experts from Zimbabwe with us live, and I'm going to introduce our guests to you. I would like to start with Marilyn Kavadza. She is Interim Assistant Country Director of CARE Zimbabwe, has more than 18 years experience in both humanitarian and development work, has joined CARE in 2003, so a very close connection to CARE over the years, and has been working in topics and programs such as resilience, livelihood, WASH, and natural resource management. She has extensive donor management experience and is currently studying towards a master's degree in strategic management and a diploma in international organization management. I bet your day is full. You are not bored, right? A warm welcome, Marilyn. Good to have you.
My pleasure to be on this call. Thank you.
Our second guest, live on Harare, is Fungisai Sithole. She is Program Manager Zimbabwe of Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom, and is an expert in media, African politics and governance, and a lawyer by profession. So we are going to address as well political as legal question, I figure. Fungisai has been working in this area for more than 50 years. She's a human rights defender. She has been working with liberal politicians, academics, and civil society actors, and is passionate about health rights and sits in various boards, bringing strategy development and women's rights expertise on the table. Here we go. A warm welcome, Fungisai Sithole. Great to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Britta. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Lovely. As an invite to our audience, you're very welcome to give us your comments, your thoughts. We have the Q&A function, and you are free to give us your questions and comments in English, German, French, or Spanish. At least these are the language I'm able to read, and I'm more than happy to give them to our panelists. Starting with you, Marilyn, please give us an idea of what the scope of projects and work is in CARE Zimbabwe. I know CARE is active in the country for over 30 years, right?
Thank you, Britta. It is my pleasure to be on this call this afternoon. And I think probably just to make reference, for CARE Zimbabwe, we started our work in Zimbabwe in 1992. And from then, we evolved from being just an ordinary humanitarian action organization, but we then delved deeper into development work, just to ensure that we meet the needs of the communities that we work with in different locations in the country. Currently, our portfolio is quite huge in country, and we are prioritizing 3 programmatic areas or domains in climate justice, in gender equality, as well as food and water. But more and above that, we have actually made sure that our humanitarian action takes precedence over the other activities within the country as we respond to different climate shocks and stresses that have compounded quite a number of rapid and slow onset disasters that we've been experiencing in the country. Climate change is the animal in the house and that we need to deal with as a country. And this has negatively impacted our communities in terms of their livelihoods. So currently, I would say the education piece that falls under the domain on gender equality is really pronounced in the country office as we speak, when we are rolling, I think currently for 2 grants that are actually running in the country. We are also prioritizing disaster preparedness and risk reduction under humanitarian early action and response, as well as ensuring that we prioritize sustainable agriculture, women's economic empowerment. Peace is one of the greatest things that we're pushing, since CARE has actually prioritized and ensured that women and girls remain at the center of our programming. The market engagement and market-based approaches just to steer the local economies is also a very topical issue. And we have actually managed to drive this agenda within our programs to promote different value chains and also tapping into the natural resources, especially the non-timber forest products, just to ensure that this is a fallback plan as we can see the impact of climate change has actually impacted negatively around access to water, access to grazing, and we have ventured in quite a number of value chains that include even fodder production in some of our resilience building programs. We have also strengthened our financial inclusion piece based on the signature model for village savings and lendings that has been piloted by CARE in different countries. I think we've went on a step further to ensure that we improve access to financial services to our farmers, to our women that would want to venture into various economic activities. And lastly, we have a big piece again on water, sanitation, and hygiene in the country, where we just need to ensure that there's equitable supply and improve of service delivery in terms of water, sanitation, and hygiene. So this is what we are doing as CARE International in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Wow, Marilyn, we have an idea that you need your bullet points to really not forget any of your target areas where you're active. Just give us an idea, how big is the team you're working with in Zimbabwe? CARE Zimbabwe comprises how many team members?
So currently we have a staff complement of around 245 staff, working in 4 provinces in the country. And we have maintained our geographical niche, really targeting the most semi-arid region of the country, the southern part of the country, Masvingo and Midlands provinces. And recently, we've expanded our footprint into Manicaland and Mashonaland West, where we are also implementing urban resilience programming.
Yeah, so it's a whole operation, and we are certainly stepping into a different aspect in the course of the discussion. Thank you very much, Marilyn. Fungisai, you don't have 200x people working in Friedrich-Naumann's Foundation office in Harare. You don't have this, but I know that you have equally ambitious goals for the country. You have been present in Zimbabwe as the foundation for, I think, for quite a while, right, Fungisai? For how long is Naumann present in the country?
We have been in Zimbabwe for 40 years now.
Yeah.
Because we came into Zimbabwe just after our independence then.
Yeah. On your website, as a kind of intro, I found a text which I find is quite putting in a nutshell your ambition as a liberal foundation, political foundation. And I quote, "The future of Africa is often regarded in a strangely unimaginative and pessimistic way, yet Africa today is full of diversity, economic potential, and innovative development. However, the continent faces challenges, and as a liberal foundation, we believe that sustainable development depends on strong democratic institutions." It's a kind of mantra, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And as a liberal foundation here in Zimbabwe, we are also fully aware of the challenges that climate change, is causing amongst our people and amongst our communities. And I agree with Marilyn that there's a lot of suffering that actually arises and emanates from the challenges of emanating from the climate change. I know she would speak of issues around the cyclone Idai, which saw thousands of Zimbabweans being displaced in the Manicaland province and some losing their lives. So yes, climate change is real. But for me, some of the challenges that Zimbabwe faces are self-inflicted. And these range from political, economic challenges, issues arising out of corruption, mismanagement of our own resources as a people, human rights violations. Those are some of the things that we worry about as a foundation. That yes, there are issues around climate, but there are some things that we've inflicted upon ourselves, which we could have done better on. Remember, Zimbabwe is a former breadbasket of Africa. We used to feed Africa, and our agriculture used to be of high level, and it was highly regarded among many. But we have lost that status. And when you lose such a status, it also just then affects the very poor in our society. We can't even feed our own as a nation.
Yeah, which obviously is sad, knowing the richness you had in the past, and but trying to give it a positive spin. I mean, as in the quote I have given you, when you talk about the diversity and economic potential, where does this come to play? I mean, not in the present, obviously, but for the future. Is there hope for the future?
Of course, there is. There is so much hope for the future. Zimbabwe itself is endowed with so much mineral wealth, mineral resources, very good arable land that we have. We have a fairly good climate, despite the challenges that we are seeing now on climate change. We have very good agricultural land as well. But above all, we have excellent human capital in Zimbabwe. And even though our education system is suffering right now, we can also agree that Zimbabwe's education system over the years has been good and has managed to produce, very good, credible, people into the workforce. Yeah. But that we have lost. But that doesn't mean to say that it cannot be regained. The future is there. The hope for the future is there. But there are certain important steps that Zimbabwe will need to take for us to be able to get there.
We are certainly talking and addressing a sort of political framework. I know there's a next presidential election ahead next year. We are going to address this a little later, but thank you very much, Fungicide, for the moment. Marilyn, there's the first question that has already arrived, and it's your question. Someone, Mr. or Mrs. Schlingmann is asking, is CARE also working in the Bulawayo region? Could you just give us this idea?
Thank you. Yes, I'll say we are also still working in Bulawayo, but what we have done is CARE International in the past couple of years, we have actually strengthened our partnership strategy. Our work is not only delivered directly by CARE International staff, but we also work through our different partners in different locations where we do not have presence. So we are working in Bulawayo, given that currently we recently got a new grant on humanitarian response, especially helping and strengthening the government on disaster risk management and preparedness. We are responding in Bulawayo, and we've pre-positioned 2 partners within that location that will be responding to any rapid onset emergencies in the country. So yes, we are present, and we will continue to provide technical support. And within the agenda of localization, most of these partners that we are partnering with are local organizations in the country.
Talking about severe food instability for millions of people, how is CARE active in this segment? I mean, we know it was the breadbasket, but now floods and droughts obviously have taken its toll. So what is CARE doing to help people farm and get access to food?
Thank you for the question, Britta. Currently, our work, as I indicated earlier on, we are trying to be responsive and also to be very innovative, and also to come up with adaptive mechanisms for communities to be able to cope with the climatic shocks and stresses that are impacting their agricultural activities. So currently, we're in partnership with crises in Zimbabwe, where we're actually pursuing climate smart agriculture and climate smart village approaches as a model that would help our communities cope better with the climatic shocks and stresses. So our efforts really are directed, especially in the southern parts of the country, where the maize grain does not grow very well in that context. We have also pushed through and have participated on the advocacy table with the government to really come up with a policy on small grains or traditional grains production. So mostly our work in those locations where we are currently geographically present, we are pushing through the agenda on small grains production. And we have seen a positive impact within the communities where those that have engaged in small grains production are currently food secure as compared to other communities. So yes, we are pushing through the agenda on domestic agricultural production. We are trying to get the trump card back to be the breadbasket of Africa again, but complementing government efforts, ensuring that we come up with the correct and appropriate seed crop varieties that are adaptable to the current effects of climate change within those locations. So yes, there's that bigger piece. And we are also promoting various value chains. This is also tied to climate smart water technologies that we're promoting in different locations. And this includes coming up and constructing infrastructure, also still complementing government efforts, and also at community level and at household level. And that's has allowed our communities to continue within the same season, in agricultural production, especially horticulture. And this is also has been layered with our markets-based approaches, where we are also promoting various value chains in agricultural production, groundnuts production, and also ensuring that the seed systems is also very viable in country.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Marilyn. Fungisai, in terms of political cooperation and consultancy, what scope or what kind of projects are you pursuing in Zimbabwe as a German political foundation?
We mainly work with a range of civil society partners,
mm-hmm.
In the areas of rule of law, human rights, supporting human rights and access to justice. We also work with the business community in Zimbabwe in terms of pushing for the social market economy agenda. We also work with legislators, from all political parties. We work with journalists, from both the state media and the private media. So that gives you the range. But we also deliberately work with young people from Matabeleland region, Bulawayo included, which is considered one of the most marginalized provinces in the country. So we try to work with them also in areas of leadership, in areas of innovation.
Yeah, so it's education and trying to foster the future generation of leaders, of political leaders in Zimbabwe, right? Is it?
Yes, mm-hmm. Yes, and it is also very non-partisan. It brings youths from whatever political, ideology they come from. All we want is to make sure that we contribute towards a future where Zimbabwe respects democracy, it respects human rights, and we can all live in a world where we can be proud of and feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Well, how is the perspective when it comes to the upcoming elections in 2023? What was the hope of the Zimbabwean people for the next elections?
Generally, we're a very hopeful population. Every election cycle, when it comes, we have hope that this time we'll get a government that we hope for. And there is hope for sure that Zimbabweans are going to vote in a manner that they really would want the situation to turn out to be. But we are also cognizant of the past that at times things have not worked out in the manner that we had hoped for in our various different and diverse political views. And we continue to hope that there will be much more electoral reforms that will allow us to get a government, an election outcome that is not disputed by any. We want to be able to get a legitimate government that we all as Zimbabweans will accept and support. So there is hope for us to be able to get a government that we really want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so fascinating. Hopefully hopes will realize and it comes through. Marilyn, let's talk about gender-based violence. We all saw these alarming numbers, a 200% increase in terms of gender-based violence due to COVID-19 lockdown. I mean, this is dramatic, isn't it?
True. Thank you for the question, Britta. Our experience in Zimbabwe, I think CARE has a very good tool for every program that we implement, that we do a rapid gender analysis prior implementation, and we continue monitoring and tracking the outcomes around our gender equality programming. And most of the key highlights, I think from our either post and pre-distribution meetings with our communities, issues of gender-based violence have been overemphasized, they've been over-echoed, and this is because the pandemic, nobody was prepared for it, and it came with its own challenges around access to food, around access to service delivery, and most communities and our targeted communities had to lose employment. Their economic activities were also kind of restricted because of the restrictive environment during that time. And this really created challenges, because where there's no food, where there's no money, there's likely to be violence, because a hungry man is an angry man. And this is what most women were now exposed to. They had to deal with the burden of trying to respond to their children at household level, where they failed to provide because they could not access their livelihood activities. And this posed a greatest challenge. But I think most of our work that we've done within CARE was a lot of awareness campaigns. And these have been reached out either through our social media platforms, just to ensure that we educate our men and our women around GBV issues, and also making and partnering with women-led organizations and women rights organizations to provide the technical support that they need in the event that they're exposed. So yes, the other piece of the dialogue was also our male engagement platforms, that we have actually created a platform and safe spaces for discussions with our male colleagues on how they can actually handle some of the challenges that they were facing at household level. And this really helped in actually ensuring that there is the issues around gender-based violence, and also that with additional programs that came on board, especially within the urban setup, we had an urban resilience program that had life skills training and also income generating activities. And this provided a stopgap measure really for some of our communities that had to engage in some meaningful economic activities at household level, really not moving from point A to point B within that restrictive environment. And that also kind of resulted in some positive impact in reducing some of the cases reported on gender-based violence.
Fungisai, how's the status when it comes to COVID-19 right now? When we prepared, you said you're almost through. Is it a little bit like Central Europe?
At the moment, if you look at the official statistics, you'll find that the COVID situation remains subdued at the moment. You know, with an average maybe 1 death in a day, or going up to maybe 7 or so. So it remains quite very low, and it's winter for us. And there has been, yes, an upsurge of flu, and many schools I know they've been affected. But from what we're getting is that the tests, you know, of all those people suffering from that flu are not in any way COVID related. So COVID remains subdued, and we continue doing our work, and some of the regulations have since been relaxed. So really it's there, it remains as a topic, but no longer as topical as it was beginning of this year or last year. So it's generally much more open now.
Yeah. So the tension in families due to lockdown should be a little bit subdued now, and children are back in school, right? It's normal school for children.
Yeah. Yes, it's normal school for children. But let me also underline that Zimbabwe is generally a very patriarchal society.
Yeah.
And for me, when COVID-19 struck, it just overemphasized or brought to light much more the realities that we live in. And I really think that, yes, maybe with people now moving around, you know, with spaces much more open, maybe we could see a reduction in in gender-based violence. But for me, it would be a very small or insignificant reduction, because our economy remains perilous. Our economy has been tumultuous. And even outside COVID, we continue to struggle with our economy, and all those things that we saw under COVID, I think they are bound to continue. Yeah. So as you would know that if you look at the government has actually confirmed that our inflation has gone up. They are putting it 191%, you know, our year-on-year inflation. But if you look at Tom Hanks' inflation dashboard, he puts it at more than 350%, the inflation in the country. So it means that we expect to see more Zimbabweans suffering as they already are. And with the unemployment of more than 90%, I really do not think that the relaxation of the COVID-19 restrictions will actually, you know, reduce the gender-based violence cases. For me, they are still going to continue to rise because our economy itself is prohibitive. It makes it impossible for people to really lead normal lives.
Yeah. So the need for education and civic consciousness and awareness is even bigger because of the framework you just portrayed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. It is even bigger, but also, for us to be able to address the economic crisis in Zimbabwe, the problem in Zimbabwe is also very political. Our political situation is actually, if you check the way it has progressed, it's the same way that our economic situation has progressed since for the past 2 decades, as it were. So you'll find that our solutions will lie with the political will of the people that lead us to be able to genuinely, want to address the economic situation, to genuinely want to restore value and dignity on the people of Zimbabwe. And as long as that does not happen, issues of gender-based violence will continue to skyrocket. People are under pressure, people are depressed, people are hurt, and I think CARE, Marilyn and team will continue to really need to do much more work in that area.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the questions which have been coming in. I take them one by one. Anna is asking, how is the current HIV/AIDS situation, and in how far is CARE involved in this matter? A question for Marilyn. Marilyn, please.
Thank you, Britta. Most of our work, I think our HIV component has been more pronounced around integration, where at household level, at community level, in our areas that we operate, we also ensure that we embrace communities or people living with HIV and AIDS in our work. Mostly for them to also have access and also to participate in our program activities. This is really based on the principle of not to leave anyone behind, but just to make sure that we embrace each and every member of the community in the best way they are able to participate and create that room and space for them. In terms of the statistics, my apologies that I have not really managed to capture the latest data on that. But I think the antiretroviral therapy program in the country has done well. That probably the number of cases that we had and deaths recorded against HIV have actually reduced significantly as compared to some statistics that you find from maybe backdating in the early 80s and 90s when HIV was really topical. So what we have done is in most of our work, especially on agriculture, we ensure that we roll out and also mainstream nutrition piece, which is very critical for HIV and AIDS patients that are also within the communities that we work. We also try to provide information, and most of our work has also been complementing government efforts in actually awareness campaigns, creating space for them when we have meetings with our communities for other projects, and they actually reach out to those communities in terms of information around HIV/AIDS, where they also can access their drugs, and also to ensure that probably if they know of any new members or any new infections, they should also report to the nearest clinic or hospital for support. So that's what we were basically doing as CARE International, and we will continue to reach out to those communities as we work within our different locations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Helmut Orban is asking, and that's a question for Fungisai. He's asking, all elections have been associated with violence. As a result, churches have proposed to suspend elections in order to reduce confrontations. What do you think, Fungisai? Is this a valid proposal?
In terms of maybe looking at it as bringing up dialogue as a solution, maybe. But suspending elections itself, it means subduing the people's voice. And it basically then sort of legitimizes, some of the things that would generally be illegitimate. And it generally entails treating a symptom and not addressing the problem. What is it that causes that violence that we need to deal with? For me, the solution lies in churches maybe pushing for electoral reforms, which we need for us to be able to conduct free and democratic elections. So I really do not think suspending elections is a solution at all. Even right now, when we do not have elections, violence ensues in various forms. Just a week ago, nurses at a hospital in Mashonaland West were actually beaten, by police simply because they were protesting, just asking for a wage increase. So even if you suspend them, violence will always show its ugly head in one way or the other, as long as the fundamentals are still not addressed or dealt with.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ronald is wondering, Marilyn, he's wondering about the situation when it comes to laws regarding gender violence, and he's asking how the situation is affecting, particularly in rural parts of Zimbabwe, which is obviously more difficult to get in touch with. How are you responding as CARE when it comes to laws and gender violence?
So as CARE International, we do have a feedback and accountability mechanism that we have in place. And we have been tracking cases that have also been reported. We also have a Tip of Anonymous platform, a toll-free line, which we actually share with our communities as we engage with them with different project activities. And this has created a platform where probably if there's any gender-based violence case within the communities, it is reported and picked through that system. And once we have that information, we escalate it with the different players, especially the Zimbabwe Republic Police, where there's a victim-friendly unit, where we actually then do the linkage and networking with the victims. And this has actually allowed these cases to be reported even in the marginalized communities. So that system that we've put in place, we have also capacitated traditional leadership within the communities on how to handle some of these matters within the communities, and they've always escalated. I think the most important tool or ingredient into this whole GBV reporting and so forth was also more inclined to dissemination of that information. Knowledge is power, and most of our communities, because they've been empowered, and our women have also been empowered through the different gender transformative activities that we've been doing within the different locations. And this has actually allowed them to be able to open up and report such cases as they happen. So this is how mostly our communities have been affected and have been supported.
Yeah, thank you very much. Kati Georgosaki is asking regarding Zimbabweans working in South Africa. Obviously, South African government is not willing to extend the Zimbabwe exception permits. And so Kati is wondering if this could affect the humanitarian crisis in the country, because those Zimbabweans working abroad obviously are bringing back and supporting families back home. Fugisai, is this something to be worried about?
Yes, it is definitely something to be worried about, because if you remember very well how the Zimbabweans got the exception permits, it was basically on an agreement between the government of Zimbabwe and South Africa. Actually also realizing that Zimbabwe at that time was in a situation where it couldn't cope, with providing a living, environment, for most of its people. But now South Africa itself is going through its own challenges. Its economy also is not doing very well. And also there's been an increase in discontent amongst the South Africans who are jobless, leading to xenophobic attacks happening against Zimbabweans in South Africa. And I think also the government then also feeling the pressure, and also as a political move, has decided that it can't extend the exemption permits. And I'm hoping that one of the partners of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation in South Africa, the Helen Suzman Foundation, which has actually taken the South African government to court to try and stop them from doing this, will succeed. Because failure to do so will lead again to, an exacerbation of the crisis in Zimbabwe. Most of the people that you find in Zimbabwe in South Africa are from Matabeleland region. Matabeleland region is one of the most marginalized regions in Zimbabwe. And they're going to be coming back home to a region that has no jobs, that has suffered marginalization from its own government for years, a region that has suffered in the 1980s from the Gukurahundi, which was a massacre of most of the people in that region. So they are coming back to nothing, and they are coming back with nothing. So it means we have a situation where we have many people that are in need of care and of support. The humanitarian situation, the crisis expands to levels that I think will be difficult for us to contain as a nation. So it is something worrying, and it is something that needs to be addressed urgently to just maintain, the little balance that has been existing. We rely on South Africa. When there were food shortages in Zimbabwe, we go to South Africa for us to be able to survive. So the fact that South Africa is taking this direction is really worrisome. And I think once it does this, Zimbabwe itself will know no peace and will have no stability of whatever form.
Wow, this is not a good perspective, obviously. Yeah. So let's see what will be the final decision. But it already declared it will not extend it. So worrisome. Thank you very much, Fungisai. Ronald is asking, and I think, Marilyn, you partially answered this. Are there resources in place for reporting? And is there any education on rights still going on in light of COVID challenges?
Yes, there is. I can speak to that as well. Yes. Yeah. No, there is. That is happening from what I've observed. And I know there's a lot of education that is happening even in schools where they are trying to make sure people are aware of COVID-19 and its risks and everything else. And they are getting into communities. There are outreach teams that are getting into communities also, doing the education and actually vaccinating people in the rural areas. So efforts are there, but there is serious also resistance from the people, especially in the rural communities, on the vaccine itself. There are so many myths around it. So that is why also we are struggling with meeting the targets. But I know that the fourth booster is now available and people can access it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Brenda is asking, Marilyn, this is a question for you. There has been a high rise in child marriages and sexual abuse. What have both organizations been doing to raise awareness? Marilyn, what have you done to educate in these particular fields?
Thank you so much for that question. Like I said earlier on, we do have some programs that we're implementing in country, and we are also blessed to be having UNICEF championing and leading most of our education piece in the country. And most of the work that has been done of lately is more to do around protecting violence against children, sexual exploitation and abuse of children, as well as early marriages. This has been done through different programs like Fungisai has alluded to earlier on. There's a lot of outreach programs that are happening in country. During, if you actually check on our various social media platforms, Instagram or Facebook accounts, most people are talking about early child marriages and how the communities and parents should be held accountable if we are to get any of these cases reported. I think of recently in Zimbabwe, there has been a case where I think people had to protest when we lost one. I think it was a 12-year-old child from an apostolic sect, which allow early child marriages in part of the doctrine of the church. And they really, the key players in this sector had to really champion the government to look into the case and apprehend the responsible persons in this. So yes, we have a lot of work that is happening, and part of our work currently in the education sector is also to see how the girl child can be actually retained in school because of some of the challenges. And most of the work that we have also been doing is also in empowering women and supporting them financially so that they'll be able to keep their girl child is also in school. So our curriculum as well in country has been also revisited, and most of our children can now talk openly about these things. They've been empowered. Catching them young is quite important because they can actually stand up for themselves when they are exposed in such kind of scenarios in life. So yes, there is a lot of work that is happening, and we will continue to collaborate with different players. And I know currently within the education cluster, these are the discussions that are happening. Every organization is being held accountable. Once you access resources related to education, part of the curriculum, part of the work that you'll be rolling out within those specific areas has to take into account issues on early marriages and also sexual abuse and exploitation, especially of the girl child and even the boy child as well, and not to be excluded in this discussion. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a question regarding Zimbabwean economy, and Mr. or Mrs. Schlingmann is asking, how is it possible to engage civil society to do their own economic projects? And is it possible to engage small grassroots projects to liberate a Zimbabwean economy? Fungisai, a question for you.
Thank you, Britta. I think I would love to say that yes, it is possible to do small grassroots projects. It is possible for civil society to do their own economic projects. But what is worrying at the moment, and what I feel could actually, make all this impossible, are the new laws that are coming up. Yeah. Zimbabwe is seriously considering a new law which sort of curtails civil society work. It sort of criminalizes it. It's called the Private Voluntary Organizations Bill. I guess it will be enacted pretty soon. And so it makes it impossible to do anything in the communities. It actually provides that, once it's passed into law, the organizations, the civil society organizations will be deregistered and they'll have to reapply again. And it's now at the discretion of the new registrar to see whether the organizations are then registered or not. But also, it has been difficult for most organizations to penetrate or to do work in the most rural communities because of new requirements. For example, there are now requirements that for an organization to operate in a certain district, and this differs amongst the provinces, a certain amount of money needs to be paid to come up with a memorandum of understanding for an organization to do work. And that is inhibitive, it is prohibitive, and makes it impossible to be able to do much. And whilst it would be noble to do economic projects, the PVO bill, the Private Voluntary Organization Bill, it's hanging the axe on the heads of many, and that is going to affect many civil society. We just hope that it will emerge in a much better space, but I have no hope or faith in that regard.
Yeah, so this bill is really intended to threaten the survival of civic communities and organizations, and just to inhibit their activities in the future, right?
Yes, and I personally believe it is targeting mainly the human rights organizations, and it's a bill meant to deal with the 2023 elections, to try and make sure all the civil society organizations self-censor. They avoid speaking on any issues that could be dissenting, any issues that could be holding the government accountable. So it's a bill that is really, watered down the spirits of many civil society actors here in Zimbabwe, and most it's above all unconstitutional. The bill itself. It goes against the right to freedom of expression, the freedom of association. It just, hits on that. And most civil society actors believe that they'll just wait till their bill is enacted into law and then try to push for a constitutional challenge for it, because they feel that there is no room for engagement around this matter anymore.
Yeah. But it will certainly affect the scope of your work too, right? And so it is to be seen what will be the outcome of the law, of this bill once it is passed, right? But we get how worried you are about the outcome. Thank you very much. We've got a tough question from Zimba, and I'm not sure whether both one of you might be able to answer, because he is asking, could you give statistics, numbers and percentage to make it a little bit more feasible when it comes to perspective? For example, one question, how many farmers in which regions have been engaged for special programs, and what has been the impact on overall agricultural output? Marilyn, this is a tough one. You don't always have the statistics on hand, right?
Yeah, quite a tough question. But maybe probably I'll share what we have achieved as Care International, especially for the programs that we've been rolling out in country. I would like to say that I think we had a portfolio of around 22 projects running in country, and for our fiscal year 2021, around water and nutrition, which is actually our climate smart agriculture activities, we've managed to reach out to about 3.6 million individuals. This will translate to maybe an average of, let's say, plus or minus 600,000 farmers that we have worked with, just to support and enhance on food security in the country. So this is some of the work that we have already done in country. This is specifically for probably part of the southern part of the country, which is Masvingo and Midlands provinces, and also touching on Manicaland. I would also say in terms of humanitarian assistance, this is just reaching out farmers probably with food aid, cash voucher assistance. We have also reached around 3.3 million in FY 2021. So maybe basically if it's more to do with agriculture, we are talking Care International working with 600,000 farmers, and that's quite positive. And we have also seen an incremental effect in terms of the food security levels in some of those specific locations. Most of our work also touches on livestock production as well. Maybe just to give you a bit of history, the southern part of the country is actually where mostly the country is heavily relying on in terms of livestock production. And most of our work has also been ventured in ensuring that there's sustainable management of livestock within those specific locations, starting on disease control and also ensuring that there is improved access to fodder within those specific locations. So most of the initiatives that we have been doing in country is also to ensure that there's access to water, there's access to fodder, and they also enhance in terms of crop production. So yes, we do have some statistics that we can provide, but I think in comparison with other parts of the country, yeah, we could maybe account to around 30%.
Yeah. Lovely. We are almost in the final stretch of our discussion. Time is flying, so we do take the last question. Karen Albert would like to have a better idea on the numbers affected by the South African permit program decision, which we discussed earlier. Fungisai, do you have an idea of the scope of people? How many Zimbabweans are working in South Africa and could be affected by this law?
The exemption permits, I know the figure is close to 200,000 Zimbabweans.
Wow.
Who could be affected by South Africa's decision not to extend the permits. Yeah. And I know Zimbabweans in South Africa, the statistics, the last I checked, they were saying more than 2 million Zimbabweans are in South Africa. So that gives you a figure that for a country of, I think we are now at 18 million, at least about more than 2 million are in South Africa. And if South Africa decides to let them all come back home, we don't know how they will survive here.
Yeah, so it will be huge. Thank you very much. Our last minutes, Marilyn, your final thoughts on Zimbabwe, hopes you've got, vision, CARE has. What are your final words in a minute, please? And then it's Fungisai, and then we are off. Please, Marilyn.
Thank you. I think for CARE Zimbabwe, we will continue to fight the battle, and our battle is really to end extreme poverty in Zimbabwe, and we will champion ourselves to embrace 3 main domains around climate change, food and water security, as well as gender equality, because we strongly believe that if our communities have been empowered, they're able to address some of the challenges that they are facing in country. And our humanitarian response piece still remain a priority. We will ensure that we will continue to save lives as a country, and we'll also ensure that as CARE International, we still maintain our humanitarian mandate. So those will be my last words. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Fungisai, your thoughts on Zimbabwe political economy. What are your thoughts on your country?
For me, basically, as I intimated earlier on, Zimbabwe's problems are political problems, and they will need a political solution. And as we go through this journey of finding a solution, a political solution for our country, my prayer is that at least for now, our government allows dissenting voices to operate. At least allows people to exercise their freedoms, and just make them feel safe. The economy is already giving them so much pain, and I feel that curtailing their human rights further exacerbates that pain. At least if we could be safe in our own country and be free in our own country, that in itself would count. Thank you very much.
Lovely. I think our beautiful finishing words of both of you. Thank you very much for your time, we have an idea of your passion, of your power, and we wish you all the best for the future, and please stay healthy and continue the work you're doing for CARE and Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. It is huge. It is huge. This is pretty much the impression we got, and this is the idea of this series to just have an idea of the fight, and as Marilyn said, the battle goes on. So two warrior women in Zimbabwe. So please continue the battle. For the audience, thank you very much for all your questions. That was great to have your comments, your thoughts, and we have an idea of how Zimbabwe is appealing to people in Europe and all over the world. So our thoughts are with you. Please stay healthy, stay safe, and you in the audience, if you wish to follow our series, next opportunity will be in 2 weeks. It will be July 11th. Burundi will be the 9th volume of our series of the 10 most underreported humanitarian crises. This said, once again, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in another opportunity. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.